Welcome to Purpose by Design with Dr. Pamela Henkel, a platform for people to share their stories, a place where change and healing can begin. Dr. Pamela stands on the fact that we are here on purpose, with a purpose by design, and not by default.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Purpose by Design podcast. I am Dr. Pamela, and I'm so excited that you're with us today. You are in for a treat. As always, God brings amazing guests, and He hasn't stopped yet. Today, I am so honored to have in the virtual studio with me my literary agent, someone that I really look up to, who he's so good at what he does. Just an all-around wonderful human being, dad, grandpa, but he's just this incredible person. And we're going to hear from him today, specifically regarding the book that he has been the visionary author of, The Stories of Transgression and Recovery. So you're going to hear from the visionary today and any other gold nuggets or wisdom that Dr. Trunnis wants to drop our way. So I want to just welcome him. And Dr. Trunnis, welcome. We're so glad you're here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I absolutely appreciate being on this program. And like you just said before, you are a dear friend. Always love talking to you. And thank you for having me on your program.
Thank you for being here. Oh, and podcast, you got to check out his podcast as well. So he'll tell you all about it. I've had the honor of being a guest on his podcast, and this guy knows how to rock a podcast. So make sure you check him out. All that information is in the description. We'll have more talk about that later. So the first question I have for those that are watching, listening, Dr. Trunnis, tell us, who are you?
Well, I am, you already know my name. My name is Trunnis Goggins, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I started out my military career actually changed my entire life. Okay. And it changed it for the greatest. It changed it for the better. I'll never forget how all of even today started. I had a chief. I was a recruiter. I was chief recruiter in my station, and I was actually a chief recruiter as an E5. And anybody who's in the military will understand. E5 is it's an NCO, so to speak. I was a petty officer second class, but it's not really high up there. And it's because of my success at recruiting, I actually became a recruiter in charge pretty fast. And so I had a chief, and his name is Chief Buck Camfield. And I'll never forget, he was about ready to retire. He was about maybe 2 or 3 months out of retirement. And he goes, Goggins, he goes, "You're one of the best sailors I ever met in my life." I was like, "Thanks." And he said, "However, if your resume comes across my desk," because he ended up getting a job for Homeland Security, because if your resume ever comes across my desk, I wouldn't hire you. I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Because you had an opportunity to get a college education and you refused to get it. You had an opportunity to get a college education for free, and you didn't get it." And he goes, "And that's very disappointing." He goes, "The military can give you a college education." The very next day, I was angry. Very next day, I went to Marion College in Indianapolis, Indiana. I enrolled in classes just like that the very next day. And I went from being a person with maybe 5 or 6 college credits all the way to my PhD. I never quit. And when I did finish my PhD, I've always stayed in contact with Chief Camfield. I can call him Buck now. I'm out. But I still feel uncomfortable doing that. But anyway, when they said, "Congratulations, Dr. Goggins," the first person I called was not my mother. It wasn't even my wife at the time. It wasn't my kids. It wasn't anybody. The first person I told that I successfully defended my dissertation, and now I am a PhD, was Chief Buck Camfield. He changed my life. As a result of him changing my life, he changed my children's life. He changed the absolute total trajectory of my life, just for that one statement. And so now what I'm doing now is I was in education after I got out of the military. I still teach, when I still love students. I think I don't care how successful I get here, I will always want to be in a classroom somewhere at some
Sure.
place. And now I have books, and now I'm helping other people get books, and things are just getting better and better and better each and every day. And if I can go back, it goes back to that one sentence from Chief Campfield.
Wow. And say that one sentence one more time for us.
He said, if you had an opportunity to get a college education and you didn't get one. And that's what started. And he says, I would not hire you if you know. And it was the greatest thing he ever said to me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he was speaking a truth to you. Like you had this opportunity, like that wasn't going to cost you financially anything. Mm-hmm. You had this opportunity that you've overlooked. And he was really teaching you to not overlook opportunities, because opportunities come to us all the time, don't they?
Absolutely.
And we can either accept that opportunity and embrace it, or we can, right? Oral Roberts used to say, miracles are coming to you or going by you every day. And that's what I thought of when you said that. It was that same type of thing. Opportunities are coming to you or going by you every day. And it all depends upon your awareness and then your willingness, right? Being willing and able, but being aware of it. And you became able, or you were able, but you became aware and willing. And look at what that's done in your life now and how it's affecting so many people. That's amazing. Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that. Well, tell us what, you're a visionary author, so you can, and also you are, you have a publishing house, and you're a literary agent, and you're a podcast host. And I mean, you have so many things that your hand is in, because you don't let opportunities pass you now. You jump in, exactly. But you also mentor and help so many because you do all of this. So not that I want to just push aside other projects that you've done, but I've had the treasure of, really working with your authors in this book and hearing more about their stories, looking them in the eyes, across the studio, and been absolutely speechless at some of the things that they share and how raw and real they were. But it wasn't just the transgression part or the tragic, the trauma. It was the victory. Mm-hmm. And, Les Brown always says, don't tell a story without a point, and don't make a point without a story. And in your book, Transgressions of Recovery, this really maximizes Les's quote, because every story has a point in this book that leads to recovery. But it's not just recovery. It's like, it's faith, it's strength, it's stamina, it's moving into your best life now. It's so much. And every one of these authors, there wasn't one chapter that you go, well, that was interesting, but this one is, whoa. Every one of them you say, whoa, wow, because they pressed through into the victory that was waiting for them. So how did you come to even getting this idea, number one, but then finding these authors, and what has it been like? How does this anthology or book project, how is it set apart from the others that you've done? I know I've thrown a boatload at you. Just bounce around and just unload on us a little bit, because this book is tremendous and you've done such a good job steering it.
The first book I wrote was Stories of Children Lost. And I lost my daughter in 2015 to a homicide. She wasn't even the intended target. And so when I wrote that, it was how I found different parents to deal with something that can never change. Okay, you're never going to get your child back. So this is to deal with something that can never change. Then my next book was stories of veterans and from military to civilian life. Again, you're out of the military. Very few times can you go back. So again, this is a situation you have to navigate, and it's never going to change.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just not going to change. Then I wrote another one about friends and family loss. Same thing. You're in a situation. This is how you're going to deal with it. This is not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Stories of Transgression and Recovery came up for two reasons. Number one, this is the first stories of anthology book where it can change. Okay. There are
That's good.
going to be people reading this book where they may be in the throes of addiction. There may be family members who are reading this book because their loved ones are in deep into addiction right now. And you know what? This is a story of the hope that they need, the possibilities they can achieve. I mean, there are people in this book that when you read their story, you're going to see that, oh my gosh, they went, I think I'm low. They went down. They went way down. You know what I mean? And if they can get up, right, then I can too. And these are encouraging stories. And another reason why I wrote this book, Stories of Transgression and Recovery, the Western world, especially the Western world, we are being inundated with drugs, you name it. I mean, this is a very bad time. And the drugs that are on the street now, and I don't mean to sound like the old get off my lawn guy, you know what I mean? Drugs in my day were safe, and that's a lie too. But it was the drugs now, I mean, you can even look at them and die. There was a situation right around the corner from my house just a couple weeks ago. I was walking past a group of people. I waved to them. I always walk every single day. I walk at least 2, 3, 4 miles around my neighborhood. I do it multiple times. Matter of fact, right after this interview, I'm going to do it again. And so when I walk, I saw this group of people, and I usually see the same group of people, the same, and so I waved at them. When I came back, there was one of the individuals sitting at the bus stop who had a drug overdose and had to get Narcaned. This was in 35 minutes after I saw them the last time. He lived, thank God, but, and then I sit there, I haven't seen them again, and I'm wondering, is he living today? So,
Right.
and I'm saying that because that is just the reality. If you're willing to get that deep in addiction, you're probably going to be that deep in addiction again. So that's what this book is about. This book is to make sure that there is hope. At the end of this book, as in the end of all these other books, there are resources there for individuals to get help. And this book has helped a lot of people. We just were in Terre Haute recently, and I was talking to all the people that read the book, and they were so thank you for sharing these stories. And another thing about drug addiction is not, this guy grew up in a poor neighborhood, or this guy did this, or this girl did this, or whatever, and that's why they're in drugs. This is just a bad person. It can hit anybody. Illegal drugs. They are probably the most equal thing out there. It's the most equal thing out there. I mean, they don't care your color, they don't care your money, they don't care anything. They don't care anything about you. They don't care about your religion. They are here to get you high, and they're here to destroy your life. And so, even in my chapter, I talk about how, drugs are not a respecter of person. And so I do share that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So how did you find your authors?
It was, one thing, there was one author I actually found. He became a friend of mine. I actually taught him in prison, and he became my friend after that. His name is Ryan Mader. He's a dear friend of mine, and he was in prison. I was actually his teacher in prison, and he was getting ready to get out, and he was talking about what he wanted to do with his life. Other people I met through a mutual friend of ours, as a matter of fact. And then we, again, and that's how we found him. There were people that I grew up with that are in this book, and that's how I found him.
Wow. So they came from, sounds like different venues, different aspects of your life. Before I ask you to elaborate a little bit more on your chapter, could you elaborate on what you have found to be different? And you talked a little bit already about it, but as a visionary author, and you are now dealing with these collaborative authors, but you said it's different in this book because there is a victorious outcome. There is something that can change.
Mm-hmm.
What have you experienced as the visionary for this anthology that has been different than the other books that you have been the visionary over?
The fact that people are buying this book, I've received messages from people on Facebook and everywhere. They're buying this book, they're giving this book to somebody, and someone's life is being changed. Someone is becoming sober. And that is just a beautiful thing. Like I said, the first couple books I wrote about stories of, there's really nothing you can do to change. I mean, you can't bring your loved one back, and the military you're out, you're old. Most of the people that wrote, you're too old to come back, so forget it. But this is the book where people read this book, they were encouraged, and they actually could do something. There was a call to action with this book that was not with the other books. And to hear people saying, hey, I didn't think that it was going to happen. I called AA, I called NA, I did this. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do drugs anymore. And Darcy Frederick's story inspired me, or Brian Mader's story inspired me. How can I talk to these individuals? Those are the things that I love about this book, and that's what I mean about the difference. Because I'm actually getting calls for, hey, this book caused me to change. I've gotten messages for the other books as well, but the other ones were like, hey, this was helpful and helped me cope. Okay. This, it helped me understand where I was. You're not getting out of what you were, where you are, but that's what it was.
I see that, how that could be a difference, where people are reaching out saying, not only is this maybe helping me navigate, but I'm seeing that there could be something else. Like there can be victory for me too. I'm not the only person struggling with this. And some of your authors, I mean, they're from different, not just in the nation. You have authors all the way from Australia in this book. I'm sure you've had international authors in other books, but I've been to interview them. I have to set up special times because they're on the other side of the world, right? To be able to do that. And so you're not just reaching here with these stories here in this nation, you're also reaching globally. So if somebody, let's say, is in Australia, they're hearing from somebody that's right there in their homeland, which is extremely cool. I love that. And the stories have been amazing to me personally, to interview these folks and hear not just what they came through, but what they're doing today, because they're doing things with their life and they're helping people and serving God, or being a really productive member of society. It's amazing how they have pulled through, and they have really productive lives now. So that is so powerful. So with what you wrote about in your chapter, can you elaborate a little bit without giving it all away? Because we do want people to go and get the book. So tell us a little bit about, as the visionary, what you put in your chapter to encourage the readers.
I wrote about it from I never had, and I'm going to tell you, I don't want to say I was blessed, but I was fortunate enough to see someone who was going through addiction.
Yeah.
And by seeing that, I realized, a lot of people say it's a cycle and it happens over and over and over again. Thank God it didn't happen with me, but I will say the ramification and the life I saw, and even I got to see the life from when I was a kid all the way to this individual's end. It's my father. And I watched my father, all of the sicknesses, all of the things that he had to go through. My father, he would not, I mean, he would be 92 right now. He could probably still possibly be alive, but he died. His liver was as hard as a rock. by the time he died.
Wow.
And so what happened with him was he wasn't able to process, things that your liver is supposed to process. And as a result, it caused a snowball for all these other diseases, that you would get. And that's what ultimately led to his death. But I wrote about going through that. It's funny that when you are someone who lives with somebody in addiction, your hangover lasts longer than theirs.
True.
Because you lose sleep. You are the one living in anxiety and fear. You're the one that's always wondering when that bad phone call's coming. And you're the one that your body's being affected as well, because of all the things that could happen. There's domestic violence. There's all these different things that come about with addiction that somebody living through it goes through. And again, there's another person that writes in the book, and I think you're going to be interviewing this individual too, that wasn't an addict, but lived through it.
Yes.
So, and so when you live through that on the other end and you're watching a loved one go through it, especially someone who's very close to you, it affects you. Addiction affects the entire, it affects the entire community. It affects the entire nation. It affects the entire world.
Yeah.
So, one addict, it's a domino effect. Because you have an addict, you're living with an addict. Let's say you had to go to the hospital. So that means you take off work. So that means you're losing money because someone else decided to get high. Okay.
Right.
And those are things that happen. That's the residual effect. And that's the domino effect of addiction, that it doesn't just affect the addict. It affects those around them. And then the other thing I write about the book is I write about that it's not, again, I talked about it a little bit. It's not, there are people, one of our founding fathers, John Adams, he had a son who was an addict. He was an alcoholic. I believe he was an alcoholic, and he died from because he was an addict. And this is John Adams, the second president of the United States, somebody who wrote the Declaration of Declaration of Independence.
Yes.
Someone who put together our Constitution. He had to go home every day and deal with a son who, he didn't do it like we do it here in the 21st century, but he had to deal with that, and he dealt with it until the day he died, because his son's family, because his son was just turned his back and decided to take drugs and alcohol over his family. His family lived with the Adams family until John Adams died.
Wow.
So, and it's weird. And the funny thing is, you can't blame it on John Adams, because he had another son that became president of the United States.
Right.
So it's like, so it's not like you're a bad parent and that's why you're doing it. And so that's what I wrote. I wrote about how to cope with that as someone who's not an addict, but who has to love an addict. And you do, even though you still have to love that addict.
I love that you said that you have to love them. Loving them and enabling them are two different things, but you have to love them. And do you feel like, because you grew up and went through that, obviously it affected you. Did that give you an aversion to substance?
It gave me an aversion to substance. As a matter of fact, it gave it to me to the point to where even, I do athletic stuff. So, and I'm old and I still think I can do athletic stuff. So as a result, I've had a lot of surgeries, and I refuse painkillers. I refuse them. I will not take them. I'll take Tylenol, because you're not addicted. You can't get addicted to Tylenol.
Sure.
But I take Tylenol, but I stay away from anything. I don't want, now I was in the Navy, so I'm not going to sit there and say I've never been drunk. Of course I have. Okay. But, I was in the Navy, and, but on that same note, I don't like anything that alters my mind. If I am not there, I'm not doing that. One thing that I made sure, one of the vows I made to myself, not to my kids, but to myself, my kids would never see me drunk. And I went my entire life, or as a parent. And
Good for you.
I haven't, once my first son was born, alcohol and anything else like that, and I never did any hard drugs because I mean, I was never in a situation where I could, because I was either playing high school sports or I was in the military or whatever. I never did them. But yeah, I've never been in a situation where my kids would ever see me inebriated in any way.
How do you think that's helped or affected them, knowing that they can count on you like that?
I think it's helped them quite a bit. I really do. I think it's helped them a lot. But I do talk to them about it. Do some of my kids drink? Yeah, you know what I mean. But that's the way it is, and I do talk to them about it. I tell them how bad it is. I tell them that I told my kids one time I told my kids multiple times as they got older. I said, I'll tell you what, and I said this, and I hope people listen to what I'm saying when I say it, because I don't want people to think, oh my gosh. I said, I said, don't ever call me if you go to jail for alcohol or drugs. I said, you can call, or stealing. I said, you can call me and I may bail you out if you murdered someone, but I will never bail you out if you have stolen or did drugs or alcohol. And they're like, but murder is so bad. I said, yes, murder is bad. I said, but sometimes you may have a valid reason to do that. You never have a valid reason to do drugs or steal. And that's what I told them.
That's so good.
And so at that point, they knew, don't call dad if you had to get bailed out for that.
And you're not saying that because of a religious conviction. You're saying that out of a life experience, because of what you grew up experiencing, and you made different decisions for your life. But growing up, you felt the effects of somebody that was choosing addiction, and getting in trouble for it, and other things. You felt the effects of that. So you're speaking out of experience.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that's what led you to creating the book that you now have out. How is that book doing? You talked about that a little bit. Tell us some more about it. How is it doing, and where can people find it, and things like that?
It is doing quite well. And one thing that I have to brag is it was the best-selling book in Australia for 19 straight days.
What?
And yes, it was a bestseller in Australia for 19 straight days. The only thing is the former prime minister, Tony Abbott, actually came out with the book and knocked it right off the shelf, knocked it right down. So, but that's okay. I'll run for prime minister of Australia, and maybe, re-release the book, and that's what we'll do. But, but yeah, it has done quite well. And like I said, we were just in Terre Haute a couple weeks ago. And now we're going to be going to throughout the country, advertising, promoting the book, doing book signings, doing speeches. The thing about this book is the authors of this book are so powerful that this is not just a book where you're going to go to Barnes and Noble or wherever and sign a book and go on. This is a book where I want you to hear these authors speak, because that even gives you further encouragement.
Yes.
I mean, these are great looking individuals. These are hardworking individuals. These are loving individuals. These are brave individuals. I mean, if when you read the stories and you read the stories in that book, they are literally exposing themselves and making themselves vulnerable to you, not because they want you to feel sorry for them. They want you, if you are going through addiction, they want you to know that there's hope to get out of it. And they're so powerful, all of them.
I love how you called them brave and courageous, because not only were they brave and courageous coming through the addiction onto the side of victory, living in victory. I like the statement that we don't fight for victory, we fight from victory. And so they not only did that, but that they share their story. And, there is risk in that, isn't there? That somebody
Absolutely.
would miss, there's so many risks there. Don't even need to go into it. But that they then would not just tell their story on paper, but then it's like capsuled, forever. There it is. But now they're running with it with you, and that's powerful. So make sure that you're reaching out to Dr. Trunnis in the description and find out when and where you can go and be part of one of these book signings and meet some of these authors, because
Absolutely.
it will absolutely change your life and change your world for sure. So, Dr. Trunnis, is there anything else about the book that you would like to talk about? Or I had a couple other questions regarding some of your other book projects, but is there anything else about stories of transgressions before we move forward?
No, I think that's fine. Like, buy the book. Definitely buy the
Yes.
book. Even if you're not going through anything. I mean, it's just, if you're reading this, if you're going through just a spot in life, and it could be any kind of spot, if you listen to the persistence and the bravery and the perseverance of all these individuals, you're going to be just shocked. I have one of the authors in there, and she is from Minnesota, from the area, Darcy Frederick. If you listen to her story, so Darcy Frederick, and I'm going to bring this up to everybody because you need to hear this. Darcy Frederick lived a life very similar to somebody. A matter of fact, during the same time as this other individual down in Florida. Now, the woman in Florida lived the exact same life as the woman in Minnesota, almost during the same time period. Okay? They were, and if you listen to it, and I'm not going to tell you all of it, but one of them was executed because she was a serial killer, Eileen Wuornos.
Wow.
They lived almost, if you read Darcy's book towards the early part of her life and you read the story of Eileen Wuornos, and if I just took the names out, it is the same story. But the most I mean, it's the exact same story. There's no difference. The only difference is the result, the ending result. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to say that God was with one and not with the other. That's not
Sure.
what I'm going to say. But what I am going to say is one was listening to God, even in the darkest parts.
Yes.
And one was not, unfortunately. And it's that result. It's that hope. It's that what you hold on to. And so you need to read her story, because you would be shocked. All of the stuff that Darcy went through. It's almost like, oh, I can understand why she kind of snapped. I mean, and it didn't happen that way.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It does matter what we think, what we say, how we self-reflect, our self-talk, who we listen to.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff matters. And I know Darcy quite well, and I know where she came to the end of her rope, or the end of herself, and who she did look to. And it began to change how she processed everything in life. And you see that, repetition is a teacher. And as you going through your book, you're getting that repetition from each victorious one in there who's telling you how they navigated through. And it's not just some pretty little story. You have people that were in prison, folks that were deep, deep, deep into bondage, even into the sex industry, people that really, really were deep into some awful stuff, intermingled with addiction, and how they came through it. And like I said, repetition is a teacher. The repetition you get in this book is teaching you how to come out and be
Absolutely.
victorious, and what you need to do to change this up here, and how you need to ask to be seeing things through, I'll say, God's eyes and not our own, but how to navigate the terrain of change that is for all for good, right? And for
Absolutely.
a future that is something you want. And so they have done a great job with that. And you've done a great job at the helm. If you guys have an opportunity to write with Dr. Trunnis as he brings out more anthologies. I encourage you to jump in there, reach out to him in the description and be like, hey, if you're ever writing a book about or whatever, if you get a chance to work with him, do it, because he's brilliant. And I mean that with all my heart. Dr. Trunnis, you've helped me with so many things and helped me dream bigger and see further and just have a panoramic positive view of what could be. And so, I just want to encourage people to reach out to you. But you also have another book coming out in what, 12 days from now, from when we're recording. So by the time this airs, it'll be out. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, on January 19th, I have a book coming out. And actually, January 19th is my father's birthday. He would be 92 years old if he were to be alive today. My father and I lived a very complicated life. There's a couple of times where it was just me and my father living together. That was it. Okay. There are books. There's already a book out there. My brother wrote a book called Can't Hurt Me, and he talks a lot about my father. Mm-hmm. I never really wanted to talk about it. I run my mouth about everything, but I don't like running my mouth about, what happened in behind closed doors. Sure. I felt that it was time for me to talk about it, not because I wanted to explain, this or, whatever side of the story. And it's not about a side. It's just my interpretation. It's my perception of what I saw. But when I wrote the book, it's called Lessons for a Reason. I write what happened, and then I sit there and talk about the lessons I learned, and then I want to share those lessons with you. And they're lessons about life that, when my father passed away, when my dad was dying, I got to spend the last 12 consecutive weeks with him. And what I mean by consecutive, I had to go back home to Indianapolis and go to work. And then I went back to Niagara on the Lake to see him. And then sometimes Buffalo, when the insurance changed up a little bit, he had to come back home to the United States to get the rest of his care. But anyway, with that, I decided to share this book as a lesson. This lesson is good for people. I don't care if you're 8 to 80. These are great books. These are great lessons to share. Lessons on marriage, lessons on how to react to parents, lessons on how to deal with when you're growing up and you're moving through classes. And what I mean by classes, I mean through economic classes in life. There are certain things that you have to consider. And so in writing this book, I talk about these lessons and lessons that I share, and I also talk about the final lesson. I'm not going to share what that final lesson is. It's even how to deal with how to approach God. How you approach God and how you are brought to God. It talks about all those different scenarios, and it's just a great book.
And I like how you turned it into lessons, because you can let things make you bitter or better, right? I know that's kind of like cheesy, but it's true. And so you're not saying all these terrible things he did. You're saying the lessons that I learned. So you turned it into something else.
Absolutely. I
love that.
The other thing I am doing with this book is I am working with a group. The name is called Gendered Equality, out of Australia right now. And if there are any other groups out there that are that need help when it comes to domestic violence and things like that, this is a group of this is a organization that will help people, male or female, who are going through a separation, divorce, or something like that, where they don't have anything. This is a group of this is a beautiful organization out of Australia that really do help people get grounded and give them a place to start from. And so there will be $1 from each book worldwide. So I don't care where I sell this book, will go to this group. So please, I really want this book to be I want this book to sell millions so I can give them millions. And I really do mean that. I'm not saying that to be funny. I mean that. I want this book. I want to be able to sit there and say I gave them I gave them tons of money, because then what will happen is there's a lot of people who did not have the resources and did not have the support that we had. They can get on their feet and they can stop that cycle of violence.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I love that. And also, what a beautiful tribute to your father and those last 12 weeks. I mean, it continues to give on. It continues to be paid forward. I love that. That's beautiful. Dr. Trunnis, is there anything else that you would like to share today before we wrap up our time together?
Other than the fact that I always have a great time talking to you, no, not at all. It's always great talking to you.
Always great. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of this and being so vulnerable yourself and transparent. And please keep writing and keep making these incredible book projects because it's changing lives all over the world. So thank you so much, Dr. Trunnis.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody that has been listening and watching. You know, we would just, Dr. Trunnis and I love to get together and talk, but we wouldn't be doing it for any real solid purpose other than just enjoying our company together. But because you listen, because you tune in, we have a purpose here in what we're doing. So I'm asking you to do me a favor and to help Dr. Trunnis meet those goals in his heart. Like it, share it, subscribe it. There are people that need to hear what has been said here today, and you know who they are. So you can like this podcast, you can share it, you can comment on it, but if you will take it and send it to somebody in a link, post it on social media, I'm telling you, this story and these stories from all these authors in this book, Stories of Transgression, they have earned the right for this to go viral. And not only for them, but for all the people that are going to be helped. So do me a favor and send this to somebody. And let's make a difference. If we all do our part, we change the world. Amen? And that's what it's about. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Remember, you have been put here with a purpose. You're here on purpose, with a purpose by design, not by default. So go out there and be the salt and the light everywhere you go. We'll see you again next time. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for Purpose by Design with Dr. Pamela Henkel. You can learn more about Dr. Pamela and her world at purposewithpamela.com. See you next time on Purpose by Design.